I'm disappointed. You broke every rule in the book. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. At least you didn't run over time. See what you've made me do. Should we do another one? Yeah. God, you're keen, Cambridge. Alexandra Winkles is next. Let's have a big, boisterous round of applause. Speak into the microphone. Stand here.
Well, you'll be happy to learn that I'm German, so I'll follow all the rules. For once. Anyways. Right. Oh, okay. So I would like to ask a few questions about the role of diasporas in international development. For this, we need to explore what we mean when we talk about diaspora, and who belongs, and what they do for their home places, what sets them apart from other organizations and groups or indeed other migrants. When we talk about diasporas, we also need to talk about migration, others, identities, associations we make. The original diaspora is strongly associated with both the Jewish and Armenian displacements from an imagined or real homeland. However, the term has increasingly been applied to other groups as well. These so-called new diasporas is what I would like to focus on. There are associations amongst migrants and their children around the notion of either national identity, religious beliefs, or political convictions. These are some examples of well-recognized diasporas in the UK who are actively involved in development efforts in their home countries. Diasporas have increasingly been targeted by governments, NGOs, and by migrants themselves in order to channel remittances, resources, and ideas about development to their home places. However, the term diaspora means many things to many people. How does a diaspora differ from other groups of migrants, for example? I'm a migrant. And no, I did not come to the UK in a Beetle. It was a Toyota. But I used the beetle as a symbol for German identity, and identity is both defined by how others perceive us and how we perceive ourselves. But I'm not part of a diaspora, as I do not foster a network of social relationships around this shared identity. I make jokes about it. No. These are migrant laborers in Vietnam. There is an estimated 700 million migrants who live and work elsewhere within their own countries. Internal migrants will socialize and live and work in close proximity with each other, and they're usually from similar hometowns and villages. But we do not usually consider them part of a diaspora. This Japanese community in Germany is one of the largest outside Japan. However, their kids go to Japanese schools and few of their parents learn German. It is clear that these families are only staying temporarily. This group is usually known as transnationals. In this country, we're more familiar with communities whose members consider themselves as British, but who also identify with, say, Bangladeshi, Indian, or West Indian cultures. Because of this shared group consciousness and social networks across different countries, we consider these as diasporic communities. So to summarize the range of still rather contested categories, this diagram shows that not all migrants become diasporas, and not all diasporas can be considered migrants, although their ancestors may have been migrants. And my point is that it is important not to conflate these too much. So what do these new diasporas do for their countries of origin? This cartoon is a more cynical view of the one-way flow of funds that has very little impact. But flows of remittances, ideas, technological transfer, and political influence do matter. The question is, to whom? Money matters, and we do not know how much is invested by diasporas, but individual migrants have sent home over $400 billion last year, which is 3 times as much as overseas aid. And we know it helps individual families. What we don't know is whether it raises living standards in poor countries more generally. Diasporas act as channels for skills and ideas. Living and being trained abroad has many multiplier effects for poor countries, but not necessarily for the most needy in remote areas. It is also an individual choice to return home, but most initiatives to organize skilled workers to return have had little success. Diasporas can wield influence. Some are so large they can sway elections. Some members abroad are able to express opinions no one at home would dare to voice. And some of you may be familiar with this picture. This is in Australia. However, whether transferring money, skills, or political influence has any positive impact on development depends on the intentions, capability, and connections of specific diaspora groups. It also depends on who decides what development aims are important and who is targeted. I'll now give a couple of examples. New diasporas can formally organize to raise money and invest in development, and one particular way is to form a hometown association. Acknowledging the importance of Mexicans working and living in the US, the Mexican government matches every dollar raised by an approved hometown association project with $3 for the community improvement schemes. During the recent Ebola crisis, members of the Sierra Leonean diaspora based in London engaged with key development players like the UK Department for International Development to initiate and coordinate help for those affected, for example by providing food deliveries for those who could not leave Freetown. These small initiatives are initiated by those living abroad, but do they need to be part of a diaspora to do so? Especially as it is difficult for some diasporas to speak with a single voice. For me, many questions about both the role and impact of diasporas on international development remain. Who and what do these new diasporas represent? Who are they accountable to? And who are the beneficiaries of their attention? Poverty is ultimately linked to inequality of access to resources. So it matters to ask, why are we so keen to involve new diasporas as development players? Would it not be more useful to spell out the true nature of intentions and lines of influence of different groups and individuals living abroad? Here are some suggestions for other useful categories. Why not call them village groups, business networks, or simply transnational agents? And finally, I wonder if it would be better to refer to diasporas in a more narrow sense again, along the lines of shared cultural values and connection to an imagined homeland or real home place, like this diaspora in Namibia. Thank you.
That's more like it. There are some feedback questionnaire things on your tables that 30Bird would like you to fill in and hand back into the box office. Whenever I'm speaking might be a good time to fill it in. Let's do some more. Meria Behizad, a robust and excited round of applause, I think.
Right, hopefully I'm ready now. Yeah, hopefully I'm ready now. Over the past 35 years, Iran has been in the news a lot, as you know. But really, over this same period, a lot of myths and have been growing, and also a lot of facts have been forgotten. I'm going to use my own experience to move this on. This is my family holiday in the north of Iran with my brother in the 60s, trying to distract the cameraman, and me off this picture on the left-hand side being naughty. This is me on the in the 1970s. Between that time, I read a lot of books, and one of the books that I read is coming up in the next slide. I'm ahead of myself, and that was a book by Jim Watson, calling the double helix. At that time, I wanted to do biochemistry, but we had 5 universities, 200,000 applicants, and the average waiting time was 2 years. So I came over to England and studied biochemistry, one of the highlights of which was talking to Fred Sanger, who said discovering how to sequence genes was an accident. Here's me with my mum on my graduation day. So years passed, and I got into biopharmaceutical industry. Led me to Cambridge, where I met my wife, and we got married, and then we decided to adopt children. But where to do that from? We looked at England, looked at Georgia even, but that wasn't to be. And then we talked to somebody who knew a couple who who adopted from Iran. So we decided to go and adopt children from Iran. Here's us by the Caspian Sea. But obviously I'd left 30 years previously, and I didn't know what to expect. Quite a lot of things were familiar, like the old boys in the park playing chess, and there was a lot of other things that were familiar, like the corner shop, which you'll see in the next slide, and of course people's love of news. And all of that. I mean, Iranians are avid news readers, and they use all sorts of media to find their news. And of course, that stretches to all sorts of technology, like the internet, which is supposedly restricted by in these days. But of course, everyone has got access to fast internet, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs who provide this service. The other thing that they use a lot is social media. Of course, with this being a far-flung country, a lot of people use social media to communicate with each other. But of course, that's also banned. With all of these, but everybody uses it, including the cabinet ministers. With all these paradoxes, we didn't really know what to expect of the adoption system. What we found was that it was all controlled by the social services of Bezisi, and they're piloting small projects with small children's homes. The particular children's home that we had, we were working with, had 10 children, 12 workers, which included a child psychologist, and all sorts of other things, all sorts of other helpers. This is not surprising, because this is a country which is really very, very well educated indeed. It's got 4.5 million graduates, 60% of whom are women. And of course, the education is widespread. This is the nanotechnology building in Semnan University. When I was growing up, Semnan was a little town. Now it's got these capabilities, and if I wanted to do biochemistry, it would be a lot simpler. How does it compare to the surrounding area? It's, as you can see, similar to Turkey, and of course in Iran there are about three times as many books published as the rest of the Middle East put together. With all of this, getting back to our adoption story, how did the legal system fare? We found it to be opaque, bureaucratic, but really quite well ordered. We actually lost in the lower court, but because the judge wasn't comfortable with international adoptions, but eventually got our children and really found out the meaning of 24/7. Here they are at 3 and 4, and now they are 8 and 9. And of course, with all of this, we left Iran with all its contrasts behind, and The building on the left is the tomb of Ferdowsi, who really started the modern Persian. It predates Cambridge University by a couple of centuries, and the photo of the right is of Tehran of today. We left all this behind, and I came back to work helping small companies move their inventions to market through the regulatory maze, and I helped them as a regulatory scientist, uses my experience and my PhD in particular. Talking of which, you'll see in a minute, two chambers. Chamber on the left is the US Congress. The chamber on the right is the Iranian Parliament. But which one of these has got more US PhDs sitting in it? I'll leave you with that question. The answer is not obvious.
Yeah, you can start filling in the evaluation forms now for a moment. I won't be long. Okay. We're going along quite well. You're next, aren't you? Have you written it? Have you written something? Is it prepared? You're going to flunk it. Flunk it or jam it? Very good. And okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a gentle mid-afternoon round of applause for Toranj Konsari, my favourite of the names today.
Wait until I say go, because it's really every breath counts on this one. Okay. Right, go. Ooh. That was, okay. So 1880, Tsarist Russia. The expansive Russian landscape made it hard to control its population. Railways were constructed for military control, as well as bringing food from the farms in the south to the less fertile northern areas. Religious ideas were dispatched to the countryside on trains. 1917. The Bolsheviks take over the railways. It's a political act. They develop agitprop trains to spread revolutionary propaganda. Note to self, communism was seen by intellectuals and artists as a means of freedom and empowerment of the lower classes and a utopian dream. Within the context of the agitprop trains as a messenger of utopian dreams, constructivist filmmakers such as Medvedkin, designers, poets, playwrights, and artists such as Malevich and Liszewski produce artistic visual content for the agitprop trains. The arid Russian landscape passes by. The printing press is a few cabins down from the engines, but you can still hear the roar. The boy who operates the press is totally isolated. He can hear the engine and the press, but nothing else. He needs to print 1,000 flyers and posters before they reach the station. In contrast, the library is buzzing, with artists and revolutionaries debating about the content of the library, its visual impact, and how they will perform its messages. Amongst the revolutionary flyers and the intense red posters lies helpful tips about farming, repairing your house, and bicycles. As they approach the platform, hordes of people with hoes, shovels, and sickles run towards the station. The train throws poems, manuscripts, and flyers out of the windows. Train stops, doors open, and the film begins. The library opens, and a man stands on top of the roof shouting. 1942. A train travels from Siberia to the northern border of the Caspian Sea. It moves through the arid Russian landscape. Red flags now dominate the train station. Passengers, Polish prisoners of war, are not filled with utopian dreams for a better nation, but dreams that the land that will receive them will show them hospitality. As one of them recounts, exhausted by hard labor, disease, and starvation, we disembarked at the port of Pahlavi. There we knelt down together in our thousands along the sandy shorelines to kiss the soil of Persia. We had escaped Siberia. We had reached our promised land, Helena Woloch. Iranian civil authorities and some private individuals vacated premises to accommodate the migrants. Hospitals, schools, social organizations sprang up quickly all over the city to cater for the growing colony. Lovers wrote letters. Polish bakeries opened in Isfahan. Ooh, that's a bad slide. In Tehran, Polish academics set up their own theatre, art galleries, and study circles and radio stations. Polish restaurants began to display Polish flags on the streets. This gave rise to the birth of the influential Institute of Iranian Studies, issuing articles on Polish-Iranian relations. Hospitality shows us a very different political positioning. Top-down politics is not directly involved in spreading its own message and through that gain power. Hospitality is nurtured through cultural identity, and through it, acts of generosity builds lasting relations. Hospitality as acts of generosity bestowed on a stranger has many repercussions, and one of them is trust. The act of hosting is unquantifiable. It is not a tactic. It is a place where a host and a stranger meet. They chat, they laugh, and when they say goodbye, they kiss. 2010, Southend-on-Sea. The hosting happens in a place accepted as familiar and whose symbolisms are held in common. A parlour was set up with Iranian and Polish suites. The flatbed of the truck acts as a private parlour and a public tea room. Sitting on the round is where the public act of hosting takes place. Everything else, the cabinet, the notice board, the walls, are all symbolically supporting this moment. We talk about how young Poles would feel better hosted in Southend, all aired on the radio. The truck finally transformed from a series of places of hosting to a theatre of fragmented memories that are performed together as a collection of the Polish exodus from Siberian prison camps to the gardens of Isfahan. The film projected on the shed an interview with two Poles who were children in Isfahan had its sound on the train under the truck. The train went back and forth, never stopping. People crawled under the truck to hear the seamless account of a journey. Breathe. Films were shown in the reserve fuel storage, where a story was being viewed intimately by a couple, sometimes by two strangers who would sit next to each other in silence. Sometimes they share a common moment and laugh. Ooh, I didn't plan for that. Sound pieces reenacting the journey of the Exodus were played in Iranian fruits as sculptures created by artist Chris Dobrowski. Each fruit became a portable audio of a fragment of a memory, dislocated from its time and its place, remembered in a new foreign land. Bearing witness is how contemporary campaigners talk about their tactics to mobilize political thinking. Does bearing witness only apply to political crisis, or can we bear witness to acts of hospitality? Can we start a campaign to host? This was a 3-year collaborative project between 30 Bird and Public Works, with many artists involved in its final stage. An agitational vehicle does not perform for entertainment, which sometimes is a tool to forget politics. It performs to celebrate hidden, informal, and common cultural traits that can influence and potentially negotiate politics.
Thank you, Taranj. We've had a dance artist, we've had a lecturer in international development, we've had a scientist, an architect, and now we're going to have somebody who's not here. So the idea for this is Andy Fields, by the way. Okay. So Andy Field from Forest Fringe, of course, is being contrarian, has not turned up. Something's going to happen on this screen, so if you can get to where you can see it, so at the back you might want to stand up or shuggle around or something like that. Okay. Are we ready, Leighton? 3, 2, 1. Let's have a nearly made it to the end of the Peachy Coochy type of applause. Could we just practice that? No, that sounded just like the last one. That was I'm clapping a man that's not here. I heard that before. Okay, so this is the final presentations this afternoon. I've been practicing this pronunciation, and they've already told me it's difficult, and boy, it is. Gorizas Markaz. How did I do? Not so bad. Give them a wonderful end of the day kind of round of applause.
Hi, we are Gorizas Markaz, meaning tending to move away from the center. Puya is a sound artist working across performance, noise, and experimental electronic music, and I'm a performance maker with a background in theater, dance, and music. We recently noticed that no one can pronounce the name of our duo correctly, so we're going to sacrifice this slide to show you how to pronounce and wake you up. So please repeat after me. Go, Riz, Az, Mar, Kaz. Gorizas Markaz. Thank you. We start most of our projects by collecting lots of nonsense. These could be family photos, videos, scattered memories, sound recordings, anything really. And we try to play around with these nonsense to try to make some sense out of it. We conjure up ghosts, spirits, faces, voices from the past. La 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 la. Bia junum la la. Beshosh bacha besinam dard bagiri. Bejunum khaya khala. We try to observe the unimportant. What was there that was so trivial that could be forgotten? The rugged pillow in the back, the writings on the boy's shorts, the young man's teeth, the doll, the hairstyle, the bracelet. What was the conversation on the radio, in the grey car? Everyday life in Tehran has been an unescapable source of inspiration for us. A single journey on the cab with 4 people gives you enough material for 7 performances. با در نظر گرفتن حضور مقامات دولتی و کشوری در شرایط فعلی ما در نظر داشتیم که با بالا بردن آقا ببخشید لطف میکنین رادیو رو کم کنین. Asymmetry was one of the performances where we used lots of these everyday life material from Tehran. Sarah and I, yes, we're sometimes 3 people, made lots of drawings of these everyday commutes on the wall and told stories about them, which Puya live recorded and turned them into a very annoying, chaotic representation of everyday life in Tehran. In Dear Hypothetical, there is oil all over the place. I was a storyteller, and I told lots of stories from Iran. I whispered in people's ears. I told them about an island where everything is red with blood. I even made them sing the national anthem of Iran, holding their hands on their hearts. And I lied a lot, and people believed me, or were at least confused, because I showed them lots of documents, maps, evidence. We even made this Wikipedia page about the Battle of Namusi, which happened between the Greeks and the Persians, and the whole bloodshed resulted in the land turning red with blood and salt. And this mummy is the Salt Lady, the sole survivor of this battle. All these stories worked because they happened at a glitch in history. Iran's history is full of glitches, gaps, unrecorded deaths, unremembered bestsellers, unnoticed mental illnesses. The lesser the documentation, the easier it is to lie about it. So we abuse the glitch. And we use this glitchiness in our narrative as well. So we play around with the elements of the narrative, we scatter it around, make it into fragments, make a puzzle out of it, and make it more complicated. But the question is, how far can we make it complicated before it becomes something totally undefinable, that it becomes undecodable? This is the same file as the image that you saw before, but we have played around with the code so much that it cannot be opened as an image file anymore, so it can only be visible as a set of undefinable codes, which neither the humans nor the computer can understand. No theft, no murder, no crime at all. There is nothing left for the police to do, nor for the judges, the jailers, and the The police, of course, voluntarily come to give flowers to the students every Tuesday. Under the clear, bright sky, everyone say hi to each other. Hello, hey, The sight of the performance is of great importance to our work. We are currently working on a project called Meridian Rhubarb, which is an ongoing site-specific performance. We add a new chapter every time we perform it at a new place, and this chapter is specifically made for that space. We have so far made 3 chapters. The first one, on expiry, was made for a masochist's pub in London. The second one, on demolition, was made for an abandoned house in Tehran. The third one, on confessions, was made for the former police station in Ipswich at Spill Festival. She was stabbed 25 times on the 2nd floor of her home while she was very ill. Could you hold this for me? And I watched the bloody knife melt the snow. My fingernails were numb. I had no idea. I was only 4. Llorando. Would you like me to hang your coat? Pardon? Would you like me to? Death, loss, and non-existence are recurring themes in our works. We are terrified by the idea of ceasing to be, so we work a lot with it, and it's actually the strongest drive for our fantasy. So we try to make some fun out of the idea of death, which is the underlying element in many of our works. If you see our works, you'll be like, these guys are obsessed with text. Well, we are. But the text is not necessarily the message that it has or what it says. It's a noise, it's an image, it's an excuse for moving, it's an object we can do whatever we want with. We notice that whatever we do, it will be seen as pro or against the Islamic Republic. So we decided to finish with this quote from Ayatollah Khomeini: making a theater that is in line with Islamic and human principles is quite a struggle. Thank you.
And that's it. Thank you very much. Next event is at 6 o'clock. It's a long table event, which has been described to me as a feast and a discussion. And that's, there's nothing wrong with either of those things, is there? I think we should probably have one more round of applause for the presenters. Yes, that's good. And I'm Tom Roden. You've been lovely. See you again. Goodbye.